So next we're going over to Chris Leach in Wales for her top 10 tips. For those that don't know Chris, she was the only female president of the LIA, which is a fantastic achievement. Her first MDRT meeting was in 1980, and she's been 28 years core to the table and top of the table 16 times. So Chris, over to you.
Morning, everyone. It's nice to see some well-known faces around the screen this morning. I'm actually Tony Gordon's warm-up act. He follows me, as you know, and if anybody hasn't heard of Tony Gordon, you're either quite new to the industry or you've been living on Mars. He's been a leading light in financial services for longer than I care to remember. But there's a little known fact about him that I actually want to share with you so you can see just how human he can be. In the 80s, when I was getting married, Tony donned a chauffeur's blazer and cap, and he slowly, with great decorum, drove me to the church for my wedding. And when I subsequently got divorced, it was a standing joke between us, and still is, that instead of stopping at the church, he should have just kept driving because it would have saved me a lot of hassle. Now to my top 10, top of the table, and I've got 10 tips here. And they're ones in the main that I've got from top of the table or from other top of the table members that I've adapted. And I'm conscious of the fact that we've got a mixed experience here this morning. So I've tried to find something that can appeal to everyone within them here. Are you growing? If you've been in our profession for 10 years, have you got 10 years experience? Or have you got 1 year's experience 10 times? At the end of every year, we need to be able to look back and see that we've grown in one way or another in that year. And growth isn't necessarily making the business bigger. Sometimes we've hit a stumbling block and a problem that we've managed to overcome, but it's helped us grow. It's taught us something. But standing still is not an option. And whatever's happening in your life or your surrounding world, when you see or you speak to a client, put a smile on your face. And when we are able to see them, a spring in your step. They do not want to know your issues, your problems, how fed up you are with the current situation. They're not interested. People buy someone with energy and enthusiasm. Energy and enthusiasm are contagious. And in these difficult days, they're the only thing worth spreading. I can honestly say that I feel as enthusiastic now as I did when I started. I love what I do. My clients love what I do. And I can count on one hand the number of clients that we've lost, other than the ones that turn up their toes, in the last 20 years. And that brings me to my next tip, which is get to know your clients. Now, we all know it's not about the hard facts, it's about the soft facts. But do we get enough soft facts? Do we really know what makes our clients tick? Do we get under the bonnet with them? And I don't think sometimes we do. How often have you been to a funeral and after it, you've come up and you thought, I didn't know that about that person. Wow, I had no idea. I wish I could talk to them about that now. The best financial plan in the world is of no use whatsoever if it doesn't take into account the emotions, the potential turmoil, all the things that can possibly go wrong. So when you're planning something for clients, don't just look at what can go right, but look at what can go wrong. You don't need to articulate that with them. You're just doing it in the background for them, because I pride myself on the fact that no phone call from a client will ever faze me. So whatever's happened in their lives, my plan should be able to adapt and move to accommodate that. Nothing should faze me that happens to them. My next tip, never assume that the current rules in place, whether they're pension rules, investment rules, or inheritance tax rules, will still be in place in the future, because they won't. Build in contingency plans, just in case. so that a client doesn't end up being boxed in, because he won't thank you for it. Always have a plan B. And that's particularly relevant with pension rules and pension freedoms, which if they tighten up, you could have made plans with clients which are then difficult to fulfill. We make notes of ideas we hear, but do we make notes of the actions we need to take to actually implement those ideas? Now, I'm sure I'm not the only one here that's got notebooks full of ideas from various meetings, great ideas, and I was so enthusiastic about it. But what did I miss? I actually missed putting down how I was going to implement these ideas. So when you have a good idea, go back to it afterwards and think about how are you going to implement it? What are you going to do? Client appreciation events. This has been the single best idea that I've taken from a top of the table meeting. I don't have time to go into the detail this morning, but basically we invite 100 of our top, 100 or so of our top clients to a function that we hold once a year. It's nothing to do with business. It's not a seminar. We're not talking at all about business, other than welcoming them and saying, you know, we appreciate their loyalty and their trust, and it's just great to have them as clients. That's it. Otherwise, it's just all to do with fun and laughter. And we've got music, entertainment, food for them. We'll sometimes have a magician going around the tables. We'll have, in the past, we've had opera singers who've actually taken excerpts from seduction scenes in operas and included the clients in it. And it's just hilarious. Everybody's laughing. They have an absolutely great time. But you know the best thing about this, and I hadn't realized initially about it, they're normally sitting in round tables and they don't know each other very often. Some clients do, but we try and make sure they sit with people they don't know. What is the one single common denominator? It's us. And so they're talking about what we do for them and how good we are. I can't tell you how good this is. The business it brings in and the goodwill it generates is absolutely amazing. It pays for itself 10 times over. It really does work well. Another tip, if a client has EIS or ITS schemes, consider leaving these to the children in the will rather than them automatically passing to the surviving spouse. I'm sure some of you are doing this already. On the assumption that these still retain business relief, there's no point in leaving them to the spouse because you're wasting an allowance. You would pass to her free. This way you can pass it down to the children. It doesn't affect the transferable nil rate band. It doesn't affect the transferable residential nil rate band. It can still pass in total, but you've got this down to the children. But it has to be actually in a will, or if it's a discretionary will, in a letter of wishes. If it isn't, it can't be done other than deed of variation when the client dies, and that's assuming deed of variations haven't been abolished. Never assume. You know what they say about assume. If you don't already do so, look at maybe setting up a one-stop shop for clients. We find many clients actually like having a one-stop shop. So we have an accountancy side for clients who need their accounts prepared or tax returns completed. And 4 years ago, we set up a legal firm using the ABS rules, the Alternative Business Structure Rules. Sometimes people have the legal side within their own IFA practices. We decided not to do that. We decided to use these rules and set up a proper legal firm regulated by the Solicitors Regulatory Authority. And actually, it works very, very well. We were very fortunate to be able to take on board a really well-respected and well-known solicitor in one of the leading firms in Cardiff. She's very aligned to work in the way we do with clients, and it works so well. And it just ties clients in even more. And talking about tying clients in, don't forget your clients' children and their grandchildren. Take time to build relationships with them, as otherwise, when the client dies, the wealth you've helped to build will walk right out of the door. They might not be your clients now, they might be too small in terms of assets, but they won't be in the future. And please God, we're going to be here a long time. So build for 10, 20 years ahead. And I don't care how old you are, don't plan for the next 2, 3, 5 years. It's a waste of time. Plan for the next 10 or 20 years, because you make much better business decisions when you do that. And lastly, we need to focus our time on the two most valuable activities that we do: client advising and prospecting, and business strategy. Anything that we're not doing outside of that is just stuff, and somebody else should be doing it. We're going to reduce the value of our business if our focus is on less valuable activities. That's what we should be focusing on. Thank you.
Brilliant. Thank you, Chris. I especially like your comment about energy and enthusiasm are the only things worth spreading right now. Love that. Thank you. So next, we're going over to Tony Gordon for Tony's top tips. So Tony sold his first insurance policy in April 1969, which is almost 52 years ago. He was an active member of the LIA, often heard around the regions, and was LIA president in 1984. He served for a frustrating 8 years on the board of the forerunner of the FCA, where he represented advisor views. Those were the days, he says, where views were welcomed by the regulator before being ignored. Now they're just ignored. So this is his 44th year of MDRT membership, 43rd top of the table, whose board he chairs in 1989. And in 2001, Tony became the 74th president of MDRT and the first outside North America. Tony built one of the UK's most successful IFA businesses, which he sold in 2004, when he rewired to spend his time mentoring other advisors, speaking all over the world, looking after his other business interests and spoiling his grandchildren. So over to you, Tony.
Okay. Thank you very much, Carla, for that very nice introduction. Chris, thank you for the nice things you said about me. The only problem is you were supposed to tip the chauffeur. If you'd given me the tip, I might have kept driving for you. That would have saved you a lot more than the tip. And I want to thank Sarah, because it's Sarah who helped me connect this morning. At about 8:10, I'd been sitting looking at my screen, looking at myself, listening to everybody else, but couldn't actually get in. So I called Sarah. I couldn't get hold of any of my grandchildren to help me fix the technology, so it was Sarah who helped me, so thank you. I also want to thank you, Sarah, for everything you and your committee are doing in getting us together like this. I think it's fantastic, and you deserve all of our thanks. And I'm proud to be an MDRT past president, but I'm even prouder that this year we have not only another UK MDRT president, but a head of the top of the chair from this country as well. So I think we're punching well above our weight. Now, I get invited to speak all over the world. Last year, I spoke in 12 countries. Yesterday, believe it or not, I was in New York. Last month, I was in Mexico. Next Friday, I'll be in both Japan and Korea, all from the comfort of my study, which is where I am right now. Now, you wonder why. Well, why am I in such demand? Well, the answer is very simple. It's cheap, because they don't have to pay the airfare or the hotels. So that's why I'm in demand. But really, I think it's because of that MDRT spirit of sharing, because I'm a great believer in that if we have grown because of others, then we should help others grow because of us. And that's something that I've carried within me for the 44 years that I've been an MDRT member. Now, Carla mentioned the fact that I retired. I prefer to say I rewired. way back in 2004, I took a long time figuring out what it was I was going to do. I think it's very important, and this is something, way in which we should discuss this with clients. If clients are talking of retirement, we should not retire from something. Our clients should retire to something, because this is what guarantees a long and healthy and busy retirement. And I decided I was going to retire to individually acting as a coach, mentor, doing something that I would enjoy doing, and obviously continuing to speak if there was continued demand for my cheap services. Now, I made my fortune under the old commission model. And I realized as I was coming up to my rewirement that the old model was broken. It couldn't stand up to the regulation that we had then, and that was certainly coming down the line. And all of this was 9 years before RDR. So there were only a few fee charging IFAs, but I went to talk to them. And it occurred to me there was an amazing opportunity, an unbelievable opportunity, because for the first time ever, an IFA, or financial advisor, whether independent or not, could build a limitlessly scalable business. We'd never had such an opportunity before. And the amazing thing is that most of these fee chargers, way back 16 years ago, hadn't grasped the opportunity themselves. They were fee charging to look different from the rest of us. But there was this fantastic opportunity. Now, where were they going wrong? Well, it was obvious, firstly, they weren't charging enough, and they were committing far too much time to face-to-face reviews, building a service obligation which would massively limit the potential of their businesses. And for me, there is always going to be this dichotomy between obligation and opportunity. And opportunity is where we need to be focused. So, first question, how can we avoid having to spend time with those reviews? Well, here is a way of doing it. And some of you may have heard this stuff before. And incidentally, I'll give you at the end of this my email address. If anybody wants this stuff, you just email me and we'll send it to you. But here's a suggestion. You say to a client when you've first done business, every year we will send you a review pack. And in that review pack, there will be whatever it is you want to put in your review pack, but there will be a questionnaire. It's most important you complete the questionnaire and return it to us. And that will determine whether we need to meet. And if we do, it's now, of course, normal practice that we will meet virtually by Zoom or Teams or whatever system you use. And in that review pack, there will be a letter. I'll just read a couple of bits from the letter. It says, please take a few minutes to review, complete, and return the questionnaire, because there's a questionnaire in the letter, so that our records can be updated. It doesn't cover every eventuality, so if a change to your circumstances has occurred which is not covered by the questions, please give details where there is a space provided. I particularly want to draw your attention to question 13. It's important we know if there's been any change to your attitude to the volatility of your investments, your risk profile. If you tick this box, we'll send you our risk profile questionnaire to complete. A change to your risk profile may result in our needing to alter the asset allocation within your portfolio. If you do not return the questionnaire, we will assume there's been no change to your circumstances, no change to your attitude to the volatility of your investments, and that our advice continues to be suitable for your circumstances. Covered. Regulatory cut, because the regulator is only concerned about two things. Do we give the client the opportunity to have their risk profile reassessed, and have we checked to see if our advice continues to be suitable? That's all they care about. Nobody in regulation says you have to go and sit in front of a client ever again if you don't want to. Now, how many do you think get returned? Usually less than 5%, but you shouldn't care whether they get returned or not. The important thing is we are reaching out to our client and giving them the opportunity to tell us what we may need to know. Now, what if they tick box 13? Well, if they tick box 13, it's very simple. They get sent another letter. Enclosed is our risk profile questionnaire. Please take the time to complete and return to us. It will enable us to assess whether there should be a change to the asset allocation in your portfolio. If you do not return the risk profile questionnaire, we'll assume your risk profile to be as it was last year, and therefore our advice continues to be suitable for your circumstances. Thank you as far as compliance is concerned. So that deals with how we can, if we want to, service our clients without actually having to commit ourselves, because it is that commitment to sit in front of clients who no longer offer any opportunity that actually stops us achieving our potential. Now, I want to speak just for a minute about our investment proposition. Now, it's not my investment proposition. I'm retired. It's your investment proposition. It's what you're actually doing for your clients. You may want to make a note of this because there are 6 steps to your investment process. And it is on those 6 steps that you base your value for which you can charge your 1%. Step 1, we do a psychometric risk profile. This scientifically determines your comfort threshold with the fluctuation of your investments. Comfort threshold, important words. And it's vitally important that when we're talking to a prospect saying things like risk, that we anchor the prospect at our understanding of risk. Because if you speak to somebody who's not in our business about risk, they assume, well, if it's risky, I'll lose everything. But when we talk about risk, we're not talking about losing the money. We're talking about the degree of fluctuation. The higher the risk, the more the fluctuation, but the more you get at the end. The lower the risk, the smoother the ride, but the less you get at the end. Clients need to understand what we're referring to. Risk profile leads to the asset allocation. Modern portfolio theory has proven that the real key to you getting where you want to get financially in the long term is being in the right asset classes, and explain what the different asset classes are. Step 3 is fund selection, selecting the funds that are right for you. Step 4 is fund review, maintaining the funds under review, because of course we have a criteria, and if the funds cease to meet our criteria, then we go to step 5 where we replace the fund. And step 6, of course, is that all-important rebalancing. Now, it doesn't matter whether you are a full discretionary fund manager or the other end of the extreme, you're doing absolutely nothing with the money, you're just giving it to a company and picking their risk-rated funds. You are still responsible for and supervising those 6 steps, and each of those steps has a value. And we can tell our client what we feel the value is. Getting your risk profile right has got to be worth maybe 0.3, 30 basis points, 0.3%. Asset allocation is probably 0.5%. Fund selection, a good 0.5%. And by the time you've finished, it is not difficult to show that your process will add about 3% per year to what they would otherwise achieve. And therefore, it makes your 1% extremely good value for money. Now, incidentally, Vanguard, who you're all familiar with the name and you may be familiar with their funds, Vanguard about 4 or 5 years ago produced a paper which demonstrated, now obviously it was produced because they wanted to encourage IFAs to do business with Vanguard, but it broke down the bits of the process and put the value on it. If anybody wants a copy of the Vanguard paper, just ask me and I'll get one to you. So, how do we judge where we should spend our time? Well, the answer is very simple. I suggest 30% only is in obligation. Manage the process. 30% so that 70% of our time can be spent where there is opportunity. But what do we do, Tony, when we have a client who we promised we would go and see them every year? Well, it's really very simple. Just tell your client. First, you ask them a question. Are you satisfied? Tell me, Carla, are you satisfied with the service we've given you over the years, with our performance? Of course, you'll say yes. Carla, you can nod. Thank you. Carla's saying yes. Well, Carla, I have to tell you that we were pioneers in the way financial services are delivered today. It used to be that horrible old commission basis where you didn't know what you were paying, but we knew what we were getting. Right? Now everything, of course, is completely transparent. We were pioneers, one of the first firms to do this. And when you're a pioneer, you hope you're getting everything right. And I have to tell you, we got everything right, Carla, except one thing. I find I'm spending too much money doing what I'm doing now, which I enjoy most, drinking tea with my clients, but I'm not spending enough time in the office doing what you would really want me to be doing, which is looking after your money, which is really where you would want me to be, isn't it? Carla's nodding. Right. So what we would like to do is move from seeing you every year to meeting with you on an as needed basis. Now, some years you may need to talk to me 2 or 3 times in a year, but there'll be other years when we could go 2 or 3 years without meeting. Is that okay? Carla's nodding. Now, exactly the same thing applies. If you decided that you're not charging somebody enough, those clients who in your eager early days as a new model advisor, you said, we'll do this for 0.5%. You do exactly the same thing. Carla, we were pioneers doing this. You're satisfied with what we do. We got everything right. Our investment proposition is right. Our service, everything is right, except for one thing. Carla, we're just not charging you enough. So Carla, I've got some bad news, but some good news for you. The bad news, Carla, is we're going to have to up your charge to 1%. The good news, I promise we will never increase the charge to you again. Is that okay, Carla? Now, I can tell you, folks, this is a statistic, a fact, because I have monitored this with IFAs. When you make that presentation, 99% of your clients say, that's okay. Now, what do you do with the 1% who doesn't? You have 3 choices. Fire the client, keep the client at whatever you're charging them, right? Or haggle and meet in the middle somewhere. The choice is yours. But if you move clients from 0.5% to 1%, you only need 51% of them to agree, and you're ahead. So now the question is, can we build limitlessly scalable businesses? Well, I'd just like to share with you 3 examples of businesses that I know well. The first is somebody I met about 16 years ago. At that time, and this is a man who works in a small industrial town, not a wealthy place particularly. His turnover, a hard-working man, he had 3 staff. His turnover was £145,000 a year. His turnover last year was 1.4 million. Yeah, he's had to increase his staff from 3 to 4, but he's got enough there to pay for the 4th person. 2 brothers came to see me 12 years ago. These guys had been hermits. They didn't know of MDRT. They'd never joined the LIA. They'd never been anywhere or heard anybody talking about anything. Their total trail recurring income was £45,000 a year. I talked to them about the potential with their business model to easily get to 100 million pounds of funds under management. And they actually said, Tony, we don't believe you. We don't believe in any of that. If you can just help us get to an income of £100,000 each, we'll be happy. I can tell you, as of last month, their funds under management passed £280 million. Can we build limitlessly scalable businesses with the right business model? Absolutely. Well, that 3rd story, 2 business partners, one's 40, the other's 45 years of age, very good salespeople. They bring in 15 to 20 million of new investment funds every year. You have to picture this. Right? These guys at 40 and 45 years of age, bringing in 15 to 20 million pounds, they already have 200 million in funds under management. Where are these guys going to be in 15 years' time? A two-man IFA business with £1 billion in funds under management. It's just compound interest. Now, will they need bigger premises? Yeah. Will they need more staff? For sure. But hey, £10 million a year of trail will pay a lot of rent and a lot of wages. Can we build limitlessly scalable businesses? Absolutely we can. Einstein said the eighth wonder of the world is compound interest. Those who understand it earn it. Those who don't pay it. So if you need copies of the Vanguard report or my letters, you can ask me, tg@tonygordon.biz, B-I-Z, tg@tonygordon.biz. I do have one super sales idea, but you can't have it today because it takes a full 5 minutes to deliver it. So if I'm ever invited back, it's a sales idea that is reported to double people's business, but that's up to you completely. But I would like to close, if I may, with just a little bit of backstory. You see, I'd never heard of MDRT. I was 8 years in the business, and someone told me about MDRT. They said there's this super club for the best in the business. Now, I was making a living. You know, I'm a high school dropout. They told me at 16, don't come back. They didn't expel me, but they said, yeah, there's no room for you next year. We're not letting you back in. I got into the life insurance business at age 22. I was making a living. I was doing about 2/3 of MDRT volume level at that time. And I thought, this is where my life is going to be. Okay, well, I had a modest home and you know, we were paying the mortgage, and I thought, this is going to be my life. Someone told me about MDRT. My 9th year in the business, I said, I can't make MDRT, it's too much. They said, break it down. Break it down. It's this much a month, it's this much a week, it's this much a day. And I started to set daily goals. Now, daily goals have a power, which only those of us who set them realize. I started to ask over my career, business owner clients, you know, the most successful of them, every successful businessman knows exactly the beginning of the day what he wants to achieve that day. The only change I made was I set daily goals and my business doubled. So now suddenly I'm at 1.5 times MDRT. So now I set a goal to make twice MDRT, and I'm going to go to my first meeting. And I'm running ahead of my goal. This is the power of setting daily goals. I was probably on target. If Court of the Table had existed then, I might just have squeaked in. I go to my first meeting. They send buses around the hotels to pick people up to take us to the convention center. I get on the bus. I take the only empty seat, sitting next to a man with a white ribbon. Now, those of us who go to the meeting know what the white ribbon says, top of the table. I said, what's this white ribbon? He said, oh, it's for top producer. I said, well, I'm a top producer. You know, I've made MDRT. I said, what do you have to do to get a white ribbon? He said, 6 times MDRT. I said, I could never do that. He said, and I'll never forget the words as he said them. He said to me, we can achieve anything we want to achieve in this business if we just have the courage to believe we can achieve it. I thought, is this all it takes? If I just believe I'm worth better, worth more? I didn't sleep for the week of the meeting. I'd lie awake at night thinking about this. Now, I've always believed it's better to try and not succeed than not to try. So I came home from that meeting. I tore up my goals. I made new goals to qualify for the top of the table. And even if I'd fallen short, I would still have been ahead of where I'd been before. And on the 31st of December, I squeaked in to the top of the table. Same office, same desk, same chair, same clients, same everything. The only difference was what was in here. Now, I ask you to think about this, if I may. Here I was for 8 years at 2/3 of MDRT. I start to set daily goals, my business doubled. I started to believe I could do more, and I go to 6 times MDRT. The potential to do this must always have been there. It just needed something like MDRT, and luckily there only being one seat on the bus to actually help me release that potential. So my challenge, my question is, how much unused potential do we all have if we just increased our belief in ourselves and what we can achieve for our businesses, for our families, and for our clients? Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Tony. There's some great tips there, and particularly interested in your approach to review, so something I'll certainly be contacting you about.